Today we're here for the session Choctaw Wedding Traditions in the Delta, and with us we have Becky and Rodney Meziere. I understand that they created a wonderful PowerPoint for us. Just a gentle reminder, if you will, after this session, please fill out these evaluation sheets. This helps us make it better and better, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Rodney and Becky.
Thank you. Welcome.
Lights.
Yeah, we could cut the lights or dim the lights a little bit.
Hello, I'm Becky Meziere, Becky Thomas Meziere.
And I'm Rodney Meziere. We're both I'm from this area, the Natchitoches area, and my wife Becky is just a little south of Natchitoches from the Clifton-Choctaw tribe, community. It's in Rapides Parish.
I think most people refer to it up here as what?
Yeah,
Seiper?
the Seiper people. So you'll see on our slide in October.
November.
I'm teasing her. We were married, and we had the first traditional Choctaw wedding that was recorded here in the state of Louisiana. And of course, you'll see the bald eagles, and they are significant in telling the story of the Choctaw traditional wedding ceremony. Next. This is a picture of my wife and myself after the ceremony with Brother Olin and his wife.
I don't remember her name. Miss Williams.
Next slide. Okay, just a little bit about Brother Olin, who he is, and it's very important to know this. That Brother Olin Williams is a Choctaw preacher and a cultural and historical expert. He works and preaches at the Oklahoma Choctaw Nation, and
which is a federally recognized tribe in Oklahoma.
Right, he's a cultural and historical expert from the Choctaw Department of Historic Preservation. He's committed a great portion of his life to learning in great detail information about the ancient Choctaw and strives to keep those ways alive in the Choctaw Nation. We contacted Brother Olin several months prior to our wedding because we knew we wanted to try and have a traditional Native American wedding, and because my wife is Choctaw and because I am Native American descent, we knew that it was probably the best thing to do is just reach out to the Choctaw community and see if anybody would talk to us, and Brother Olin didn't hesitate to contact us and said he would be more than happy to drive to Louisiana and conduct our wedding ceremony.
And he did. He came a couple of times before the wedding to come and see where we live, the area, which he was ironically already familiar with. He has family in connections to the Chitimacha. Right. And then his wife, I think it is Mississippi Choctaw, or is it vice versa?
No, he's Mississippi Choctaw. His wife is Oklahoma Choctaw and Park Creek.
Right.
Now this is a picture of the Seiper people, the Seiper Creek people, and this is my wife's. This is one of the older pictures that survived from her community of the Native Americans when y'all do your traditional.
Yeah, at that time, and we don't practice this anymore, but at that point in time, they would have their religious, I'm gonna say ceremonies, but it was still Christianity had already came into the community and was formed. What they did was they would incorporate, I think, some traditional stuff in that. So they would actually walk around the cemetery and they would pray and sing and all of that. So this is one of those pictures. And some of these guys are descended of the Smith family. I'm not sure if y'all have ever heard of them. My family is the Thomas family. And it could possibly be a couple of Cliftons and Tylers in there. But that's a very old photo.
Now, this is on my paternal side. We know for a fact that we descend from Natchitoches Caddo and from Chitimacha, which it's a long story, but this is on my father's side. We also, as well as Dr. Gregory, think that there's a Quapaw married into my paternal, which is my father's side, but my mother's side, who can pretty much tell us who this is in the picture.
She's in here today.
Yeah, we know that that they're Native American. We've always been told, or she's always been told, that they were Cherokee, but we suspect also that perhaps because of the area where my mother's grandmother was from, might possibly Appalachia as well. Mom, can you tell? That's Momo? Can't remember? That's my grandmother's grandma.
Right.
It's okay.
But
You caught me off guard.
Caught you off guard.
But we've done, well, especially with your side as well, we've done
Right.
a lot of research in genealogy. We both, I would say that's kind of a hobby we do on the side as well. But back to the wedding. So all of these people kind of led to where we are today.
Yeah, the reason why we had a traditional Choctaw wedding. Next slide. All right, the traditional Choctaw wedding ceremony, according to some early historical accounts, prior to European contact, there wasn't anything, no real ceremony. Normally, when a man and a young woman decide that they wanted to, I guess,
Courtship,
marry,
marriage.
a courtship, then it was just an agreement and it would happen. However, after European contact, that's when you'll start to see more of the traditional wedding or ceremonies or rituals that was added to make it special in the Choctaw communities. Choctaw ceremonies were normally performed by a tribal elder or a spiritual man, and I think they say medicine man in some cases, would be the one that conduct the actual ceremony. And there is a process to the ceremony which we will discuss. Next slide. The courtship itself is simple. When a young man sees a young woman that he's interested in, that what he'll do is that he'll gather sticks or maybe stones or something of that nature, and then he'll throw them at the young woman's feet. And it's automatically known, or she automatically knows what the intent is and what that symbolizes. So if she gathers the sticks and stones and throws them back towards the young man, then she's accepting his proposal. If she ignores, if she does nothing, and if she was in a room or in the vicinity and she ignores that action and she gets up and leaves abruptly, then that tells the young man that she's not interested. Next
Kind
slide.
of funny, huh?
Okay, now here's where the process begins. After the acceptance of the proposal from both parties would inform their aunts. Now, in Choctaw society, it's a matrilineal society. So the women play a big part in decision makings and things of this, especially with the wedding ceremony. It's not so much as the male. They're there for security and support. So the women basically make all the decisions. And so the young man and the young woman informs their aunts that they would like to marry, and it is the aunt's responsibility to
Determine if he's eligible.
determine if he's eligible or if she's eligible, and whether or not they're worthy or good for each other.
And I think to put that in terms of understanding in today's way of marrying, if you think about it, sometimes it does take a community to decide and make decisions. So within the Choctaws, even today, family is extremely, extremely important. So if you get the acceptance from others within the family, then you kind of did a good job.
Yeah, as you can see, that the man's aunt must confirm that the man is he will provide a healthy home, he will provide food and security, and the woman's aunt will convince the other aunts that she's will provide children and wisdom.
Exactly.
And so afterwards, then they'll discuss the details of the ceremony. Now, from our research, we know that marriage rituals vary from custom to custom or tribe to tribe. What I mean by tribe, there's clans of different Choctaws. Mississippi Choctaws marriage ceremonies or rituals will be a little bit different than the Oklahoma. Over time, things have a tendency to change for different reasons, such as outside influences and pan-tribal marriages into the Choctaw community, as well as non-Native American marriages in the community. So although they have some of the same aspect of the traditional wedding, there are some differences. Next slide. Preparation. Now, when the parents of both clans approve, then the ceremony procedures for the marriage feast begins. The preparation, the bride must make her wedding dress, and of course, when you see the picture of me and my wife during the marriage ceremony, she made that dress, and she made the dress from, you can tell them better, from according to a dream?
Well, I kind of always wanted a Native American wedding, but it just didn't happen. So I have been involved in the arts and traditional basket making since I was about 12 years old. So for me, it was extremely important to incorporate that in our marriage. So making the dress, I had to do a lot of research. I've always been around the jingle dresses that are more tribal and ceremonial, but to make a Native American dress was almost unheard of, because without documentation, how are you going to have something to go by? So what I did was, they're called jingles. And it's what you've seen probably at powwows. There's little jingles that they make when the dress kind of swishes back and forth. Well, on the bride's dress, it's supposed to have been 360 of these put on to represent each day of the year. So that's what I did. The ribbons would represent the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. And I chose a off-white dress because it's not a traditional wedding that would have white. Actually,
right. It was
most Choctaws don't even use white in their weddings.
It was the traditional dresses were made out of buckskin. And,
and the color white wouldn't have ever even came into any tribal wedding, because they were more on their clan representing that area, more so than representing the ceremony. So with that said, I went out, I had to order these, all of this stuff, and I hand sewn each one.
And the man's responsibility is to provide enough meat for all the guests that's going to be at the ceremonial feast. Next slide. Now, and here's another part. Now, just prior to the actual feast, one of the things that come into play is that the man has to show that he is strong enough to support the family, and the woman has to show that she's just as capable and strong to bear children. So what happens is that at a particular point within the ceremony, or just prior to the feast, that the woman must run from point A to point B. And then the man must give her, just a head start, a big head start. He has to catch up with her. Now, two things. If he doesn't catch up with her, or if she doesn't try hard enough, the tribal elders think that she actually tried hard enough, then the marriage can be, it won't happen. Yeah, it won't happen. They won't be married.
Because they considered not equaled.
Yeah, they have to show and make an effort. And, well, she made an effort, but
trust me, I wasn't running.
It wasn't hard. Okay, next. All right, and that's pretty much it. If he fails to catch, the young woman, then the tribal elders can call the wedding off. And pretty much at this point, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, at this point, as you could see, we have went back inside, and then we changed into our wedding regalia.
Yeah.
Next slide. And okay, after the chase, and once in traditional traditional Choctaw, I guess we could say in some ceremonies they don't change; they stay in the same regalia the entire time. But we had the opportunity to go inside and change. But however, once the chase is completed, then the man and the woman no longer face each other throughout the remainder of the ceremony. They stand side by side the entire time, and it's because in Choctaw belief that you only face adversity, and because you're becoming one, there is no adversity. You must face it together,
Side by side.
side by side. Next. Yeah, this is prior to while we were getting dressed into our marriage regalia, Brother Olin, he entertained our families. He told several different Choctaw folk tales.
Mm-hmm. Well, he told the story of the eagle claws.
Yes.
But he did it in Choctaw and in English.
Right. So our wedding was in both languages, Choctaw as well as English. And the ceremony itself, when you see the bald eagles and they're doing their ceremonial courtship, then they'll interlock their talons, and of course they'll fly to the heavens, and their interlocked talons, and they'll plummet to the ground, and they don't release until that last possible moment. And that represents man and woman in Choctaw tradition of unity. And
right, and that's where the symbolism comes in.
Right.
with the woman and him chasing, because the woman has to know that her partner is able to be strong enough to help survive and make the family grow and be prosperous. So
Right.
if he was to release his claw from the eagle before they get to the stopping place, she would completely disown him, because he's not strong enough to keep
Right.
up with her and be by her.
next slide. Okay, let's see if this is a play. It's supposed to be a video, and it's only a 30-second video, and it just shows you the courtship ritual of the bald eagle, where they interlock their talons and they actually plummet to the earth and swim and spin. But it's okay if it doesn't play. It was just a visual of their courtship
I don't
dance.
see a
It's okay. Don't worry about it. We can go to the next slide. Say that again.
I just said it was weird. It's like it shouldn't have a play on our
I know, I don't know.
It just hit. Yeah, it would be down here at the bottom left.
Was it? Do you want me to go back?
No, that's fine. We can stay. Go ahead, baby. This is the meal. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. The meal is traditional as well. You may have to remind me.
I will.
Prior to the matrilineal ritual, the bride and groom share a ceremonial meal, and that's us. In our ceremonial meal, we had corn, we had meat, and what was the other?
It was dried meat.
Right, it was just that, corn and meat. And here it says traditional foods are cornbread mixed with peas, banaha, dried meat, nipishilia, and walaska dumplings. And what that is that's kind of a combination of your bare essentials, more or less, is the best way to explain
Right.
that. And that is the significance of us feeding each other.
And you can see that we have, that's fine, you're good. We have the Choctaw basket, and that was the Choctaw basket that we got from Mississippi Choctaw.
Yeah, Mississippi Choctaws.
And the pine needle basket, which is the traditional baskets of my wife.
And that's what I made for well, that's what got us together, but that's a whole nother story.
And just to add to another symbol of unity, into our wedding, we brought in something that you normally see in a southwestern marriage ceremony, and that's the wedding vase. And the man and woman drink out of the wedding vase at the same time, and you cannot spill a drop, because if you spill a drop, that just shows that you're not able to
or in tune with each
coexist
other.
together. Right.
So again, as you see, it's side by side. So is the vase itself. Has two holes that open, but yet at the bottom it's a hole. So
Exactly. Next. Now, after the ceremony of feast between the man and the woman, a blanket is put over their shoulder, and the blanket represents what was it? Comfort,
I think it
unity,
is.
to show that they are becoming one,
Oh, yes.
one body, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer two separate bodies; that they're becoming one person. Next. Now, of course, once again, Brother Owen, who's a certified Choctaw preacher, we begin our actual ceremony ritual by facing east. And you'll see that throughout the ceremony, he would say a prayer, And for that particular direction, because we're going to turn toward all 4 cardinal directions, he'll say a prayer for that particular direction and then explain what each direction represents.
And each time he's seeking approval from the Spirit Lord or higher power, and also our ancestors.
Exactly. Next. And that one kind of tells you a little bit more what the cardinal direction ceremony was all about. That it's dimensions of health and the cycles of life, such as stages of life, which is birth, youth, adult, and then death, and then the seasons, which is spring, summer, fall, and winter, and spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and physical aspects. All of this takes place in husband and wife.
To add to that is the reason we began the prayers at the east. Sun rises in the east.
Right.
You rise together. The prayers ended in the west, facing west.
That's right.
And that's because, the sun sets in the west. So you're still together, and you're going to, be gone together.
Next. Now, after the prayer, then the praying, then there is one more prayer, and it's a prayer of long life and strength that's bestowed upon the couple. And this is the only time that they would face each other within this, ceremony. And it's a slow movement toward one another, and then a hard embrace, and from there, it's the
wedding has been performed and the ceremony is complete.
When we clasp talans. And
So
that
see, the
shows
reason
that
that we face at the end is because, we know that being married with families, you're gonna face adversity. So in the end, that's what we end with.
Well, that
and then we turn back and face the
right,
family.
you form that bond, that oneness. So you're no longer two individuals, you're now one individual. So you're no longer man and wife, or man or wife, you're man and wife together. And of course, the eagle's claw. And then right after that particular point, then the wife and the husband now is greeted by family members and congratulated. And then everybody go off and eat. And that's pretty much what it was. Everybody had a good time and had a lot to eat. We could cut the lights on. That was the last one.
So what you could take away from watching the video is, and you can think about what traditions are today with the man and the woman, the white dress, the whole 9 yards. You can kind of almost see how even from the beginning that they're taking these things that were traditionally done and just made it more elaborate. But we preferred this type of wedding because everything symbolized something.
One of the main things we wanted to bring into our family is that we know that we are Native American, more so because you're state, and every generation there is less and less identity of being who we really are, and we just wanted to really bring that back into play because we are Native American, we are part of this place. And we just didn't want our children and our children's children to ever forget it.
Yeah. And in my community, we're Choctaw Indian, but, it's been a long time since anything has really been practiced. So for me, I wanted to be one of the first to try and incorporate that back into the family of traditional ways of doing things. Because I think sometimes people get caught up in the difference of race and culture and forget the culture. So, without a culture, who are you? Who are we? Okay, do we have time for questions?
We do.
Okay.
We're going to open the floor up for Q&A session. If you have questions or comments you want to make, now's your chance.
Soaking it all in, huh?
Okay, then.
It was never, we know that we've never had any, we've never heard of a traditional Choctaw wedding or any wedding. I mean, most weddings have always been performed either by a priest, preacher, or justice of the peace. So, you know, we thought that it was probably time for us to, you know, just do something different and let our kids know that, you know,
There are
It is part.
other options. You don't always have to follow what society says that you have to follow. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, and you make a very valid point in that people have deviated from what culture used to be. Their culture dictated back then. And we've seen that if you look at weddings today, they are very, what they consider traditional is not.
No.
You know, we look at, you know, simple things that we do in wedding ceremonies, you know, the something borrowed, something blue.
Right.
You know, that all goes back to something way back in a different time, a different culture. And so you make a valid point that if we don't focus on those cultural things that are important, they will be lost.
And you know, and going into the whole Choctaw thing with the family's approval, and it makes sense if you think about it. There's a high divorce rate, and without getting to know who you are marrying and your family know that as well, sometimes people rush into decisions. So that made sense for that to be a tradition in a tribe, because they didn't want to have somebody else coming into their tribe that may disrupt it. So it kind of makes sense in today, and definitely made sense then.
What I find very interesting, you know, in today's weddings, you know, mothers and fathers are have a very prominent role. But you pointed out that the aunts have a very important role in Choctaw weddings, and so I find that very interesting.
And the reason for that is bias. A lot of times, you know, like my mother-in-law, she may say, "Oh, Becky's the greatest in the world," but her sister may see something she doesn't. So therefore, you have outside resources that have at least some influence on kind of what's going on.
Certainly food for thought.
Yeah.
What's the
Any
significance of the sticks in the very first part of it? Do you know?
It's really not probably the sticks necessarily. It's a symbol of I'm getting your attention.
Right.
It could have been anything, but the idea is I'm throwing something at you. Are you interested? If she's interested, she's going to pick it back up and give it back to you.
In our case, I didn't throw sticks at her. It was a flute. It was my River King flute that I played, and kind of tossed it her way, and she accepted it. So we didn't cover that.
So, you know, when you go home tonight and your spouse says, "Come here, let me hit you," you know, it's a tap of love.
Any other questions?
I commend y'all for doing that. I think that's great.
Thank you.
To bring back some of the traditions, because so many traditions have been lost.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Would it be different possibly with another Native American tribe than the Choctaw?
Yes, it
Yes.
would be.
Would each
Creek has their own method.
Right.
Most of them all have their own ways of performing the ceremony, but the end result's the same. It's the same process, but the way they go about it's different.
Yeah, normally a traditional wedding would take 2 or 3 days. So we condensed everything in one long day
Yeah.
and night. So
'Cause I didn't have that kind of energy.
So now you say that you were married by Brother Olin,
Yes.
correct? You know, there's always that legal aspect to it.
And I meant
so
to mention
is this someone
that.
who's ordained?
He
or-
is. He's an ordained Baptist minister, but he also does traditional Choctaw weddings. Of course, in today's times, we've got to be legal. So we
Right.
did the paperwork just like you would in a regular wedding,
Right.
and everything was turned in. It's just the method to get to that point is
he's a
different.
cultural expert also. You know, he teaches stickball. He teaches.
Yeah, he's a historian
yeah, he's
for the University of Oklahoma as well, and he works with the anthropologist there.
actually for both tribes.
Yeah,
the
Ian
Mississippi
Thompson.
Choctaws as well as the Oklahoma Choctaw.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay then.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing this with us. As you pointed out, you know, so much of our culture is being lost. The young people, you know, they may read about something, but it's not the same as having it passed down from one generation to the other. And I think that's very important, and I commend you on what you're doing. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.